This is Fowl Players Radio, your podcast for arts, entertainment, and pop culture. Welcome. My name is Michael Spedden, your host. Every episode features fun, fascinating stories about people in the performing arts, actors, authors, dancers, writers, musicians, athletes, you name it. Folks who are center stage, backstage, on camera, or behind the scenes. Sit back and listen. Let's have some fun. Fowl Players Radio is a proud production of the Fowl Players Group and the official podcast of the Fowl Players of Perryville.
Hi, this is Kim of Kim's Crypt, and you're listening to Fowl Players Radio.
Hi, this is Kathy Ladman, and you're listening to Fowl Players Radio, the place where you get all of your good news information. Not really, but it's just a great show.
Oh, Snowman here, and you're listening to Fowl Players Radio. Wait, foul? That look fair. No, it's foul. It's Fowl Players Radio.
Hi, folks. This is Jay David, and you're listening to Fowl Players Radio.
And folks, welcome back to another episode. Michael Spedden here, Fowl Players Radio. Tonight's guest is Brian Damage Forsythe. He is the guitarist for KIX and also for Rhino Bucket. We met a couple of weeks ago over email. Steve Naran just hooked us up, actually. Steve was a guest that I had on recently. He was a co-executive producer of the Hammerjacks Rockumentary and also produced a documentary on the band KIX a number of years ago. And, Steve hooked me up with Brian, and we had a great talk tonight. Lots of great things to talk about. The Hammerjacks movie, kind of some thoughts he had on it. The M3 Festival coming up at Merriweather Post Pavilion. That's going to be in May. The Monsters of Rock cruise. KIX is going to be part of that. We talked about, a number of the KIX albums and some songs and different memories from producing those. And I became a KIX fan back in middle school. And some of the lyrics on some of the KIX albums ended up getting me and a few friends in trouble, and we'll talk about that story. We also discussed Rhino Bucket's recent European dates, and we have all of Brian's websites having to do with KIX, his own personal one, Rhino Bucket, and Kara Guitars. You'll find all of those in the show notes listed. You can follow us on many different platforms, as you can see here, just about anywhere you can find podcasts. We have our audio version on foulplayersradio.com, and we also have our video version. You're looking at me right now and saying, my God, does he have a face for radio? If you follow at Fowl Players Radio on YouTube, you'll be able to find all of episode 10 and all of episode 9 on there. All the other previous episodes are in audio form on the website, and we also have audio versions of the most two recent seasons as well. Please, wherever you listen, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and give us an honest and fair review, folks. And please spread the word to your friends. We're here and we're having a great time. I think your friends will have a great time listening too. So we will be right back with Brian Forsythe of KIX and Rhino Bucket right after these words. Stick around. Hey, folks, the Chorus of the Chesapeake is having their second annual Bull and Shrimp Roast. To benefit the chorus, it's going to be on Sunday, May 21st, 2023, from 1 to 5 p.m. at Superior Catering Hall, 1010 South Oldham Street in Baltimore, Maryland, 21224. Tickets are $50 each. There will be a cash bar available. No BYOB or coolers will be allowed in. For more information and tickets, contact Bob Mattis at 410-435-1947. We hope to see you there.
Hello, this is John Piet,
Kevin Schmidt,
and Jerry Bozick.
And we're August, a little band from Virginia. You can hear our story, other stories from the legendary Baltimore, D.C. music scene, and much, much more with Michael Spedden on Fowl Players Radio. You can find it at www.fowlplayersradio.com, on YouTube, and wherever you find podcasts online. Keep rocking.
This is A.D. Adams, and you are tuned in to Fowl Players Radio with your host, Michael Spedden.
Yeah, hi, this is David Simmons from DC Star, and I am just encouraging all of you to tune in to Michael Spedden's show on Fowl Players Radio. And love the rock and roll of the past and the art of the future.
Folks, and welcome back to another episode of Fowl Players Radio. My name is Michael Spedden, and we have tonight Brian Forsythe from KIX and Rhino Bucket is joining us tonight. Brian, welcome. I have a long history of listening to your music, and I'm really glad that you agreed to do this evening. So welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. So where to begin? Well, I guess we'll kind of talk because I was just introduced to you over email last week by Steve Narangis, who was the executive producer of the Hammerjacks Rockumentary. You had to be there. I know you were, interviewed in it with, your bandmates, and I know you played there. Good Lord, I probably can't even remember how many times, huh?
Like once a month.
I know it was like you guys were like Norm at Cheers at Hammerjacks. It was like, So do you have memories? I mean, of being in the movie, making the movie, and just some things you'd like to tell us about playing there?
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, yeah. Steve had done that that other documentary of ours, the making of Rock Your Face Off.
Oh, right.
And so that it's weird. Him and I have had a little history. He had like this TV show. I don't even know what station it was on, but he had this little studio set up and he did interviews and stuff. And he had me on there. And it was right before KIX recorded the Rock Your Face Off album. And when I went there, I realized he was right around the corner from where Mark Shanker lives, who's our bass player. And that's where we ended up doing most of the record, was at Mark's house. So, I mentioned that to Steve and he goes, hey, you think I could drop by with a camera crew and film you guys recording? Would that be okay? And I said, sure. So that's what they did. They came by and they recorded all this stuff. And then, I don't even know if he had to plan to do the DVD at first. And then after he got it all together and looked at all the footage, he just put it together and we just put it out there. We put it out, and it ended up being #1 on Billboard DVD charts, which was like, we didn't think anything would happen with it. We thought it was interesting, but we got like a little award for it and everything. So that was really cool. So I've known Steve since then. And then when we went to do the premiere for that, Rock Your Face Off, the making of Rock Your Face Off, that's when I did the interviews for the Hammerjacks thing. He told me he was putting that together. So I did that. It was like kind of like the backstage area for the theater where we premiered that DVD.
Yeah.
Did that answer your question, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Now I know that you guys played there a million times and everything, and it was, and I'd seen you there a million times. It was kind of hard to see because I think, for your shows and many other shows down there, like the occupancy code for the fire department was just kind of a suggestion.
Right. And well, see, they kind of did it right because they had a whole nother side of the building that was like the dance section. So they could just, those people just spilled into it. So, and they could just claim that was part of that one, I guess. I guess that's how they got away with it. But yeah, it was, but you know what? We met the Hammerjacks people way back when our first record first came out. And we did our record release party at the original Hammerjacks, which was this tiny little, I think it's in the documentary, that little row house or whatever on Charles Street. Yeah. So so when they opened the real Hammerjack, the big, famous Hammerjacks, I think we were the first band to play there, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not sure, but
I think so. I think you're right. I'm sure Bud Becker would know. Bud is a good friend of mine, and I've had him on the show about 8 times, not only talking about Hammerjacks, but with all the bands that he's worked with over the years, I mean, his memories are just like a who's who of rock and roll.
Yeah, and he's got documentation too. I've seen like
Yeah.
contracts, and like it's like so cool to see that stuff, because you know, for me, I kind of my timeline kind of gets blurry, and I can't remember when things happen, or like how much we got paid. It's like, wow, we got paid that much back then.
Oh yeah, I know. Isn't that something? It seems, and I really feel for bands nowadays. I can remember, you know, I still play in an acoustic duo. The fellow that I play with is a few years older than me, and he was playing back in the 70s, back when you could be in a cover band, play a whole night, and make a living at it. And it
Yeah.
seems like, you know, the amount of money that the bands are being paid is like pretty much the same, with no adjustment for inflation over the past 50 years. And it's just, it's hard. It's hard, you know. I don't have to tell you, I'm sure, you know.
Yeah.
You know, I think,
Except for the tribute band boom. Those kind of bands seem to be you know, especially if you reach a certain level, you can make a pretty good living.
yeah, those bands are usually very well done. You know, I've always been, you know, the stuff that I've done, and you know, I've always been a songwriter. You know, the bands I've played in have always done originals, and you know, I've just the way I kind of look at it is, you know, more power to you, because you know, the tributes out there, most of the tribute bands that I've seen, if I were the real guy, I wouldn't be insulted by the tribute, because they do a wonderful job on it. Sometimes I think these guys that do these tributes know more about the band they're paying tribute to than the people that they're, you know, that the actual people do. You know, they usually are very well done. But I've always just been more of a believer in, you know, if you want to see Rush, go see Rush. Come see me, you know. I don't know if you agree with that or not. I guess there may be, you know, there's probably, you know, a bit to be said about either side, really, you know.
Yeah, I don't know. It's people seem to enjoy those bands though.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if I've ever seen like an actual KIX tribute band. Maybe we just weren't big enough, but I would take it as a compliment.
Yeah. You know something, let me tell you a little bit. When I was playing in I was in a hair band in the 80s, and then after that we kind of went to like play like more alternative stuff. And like a lot of the bands that were doing covers, they were like, no, it would be weird to do KIX because these guys still hang out here and they might get mad if they heard us playing their songs, you know.
Well, we wouldn't have, but it would be like covering a local band, which it does seem kind of strange.
Right. I mean, believe me, everybody looked up to you guys. You know, we were always, you know, we were always like, yeah, KIX, you know, and we were always, you know, we looked up to you and we loved it and everything. And maybe if we didn't know you, you know, maybe, you know, if you were from somewhere else and hanging out elsewhere, then you know, it would have been a little different. But it would have been kind of like I guess people felt like it was a little too close to ripping off somebody else's act that you perform with, or that it was a little too close, I think. But you know, we always loved you. You know, we always loved you. And you know, the shows were always a lot of fun. I took my wife to the thing that you did in Frederick, the COVID concert in Frederick.
Oh, that one.
Yeah.
I remember that. I remember that one because we hadn't played in a while and it was a little shaky, but and cold.
Yeah. Oh, I can imagine. I mean, you know, I've played outside in the cold too. I mean, that doesn't do your fingers any good, and your guitars are probably going out of tune like crazy too. You got to constantly stay on that.
Yeah, they had those heaters on the sides of the stage that were like blowing hot air or warm air. So I'd walk back by my amp and it would be cold, and then I'd walk towards the front and I'd go through this like stream of hot air, and my guitar, I could hear my guitar just going.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I can remember, you know, and you know, just kind of talking about my following of KIX, you know, going back to middle school when the first album came out. You know, somebody bought it. We had a group of friends. Whenever somebody's mother would go to the store for a couple of hours on a, you know, Friday, we'd all go over there and hit the stereo, bring the albums out. We'd be listening to you guys, Ozzy, Judas Priest, Alcatraz, Rainbow. And we loved yours because they're like, these guys are from Maryland. And we're like, wow, really? This is put it on. And then we really loved, yeah, yeah, yeah. That was our thing. And you kind of corrupted the youth back then, I'll tell you. We had, yeah, 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 that spoken part in the middle, that kind of became part of our vocabulary in middle school. And whenever somebody would get ticked off at us or something, would always say, yeah, well, that doesn't make me a bad person. And, we would do that, especially like if girls got mad at us or something.
Yeah.
And then whenever somebody would do something we didn't like, we'd always be like, man, go outside and do that. And that became a thing too. Well, it was all fun and games until somebody said that we had one of our teachers gave us homework over the weekend. One of the kids said, man, go outside and do that. Well, he got sent to the principal's office. His parents had to come in and find out why. And then the KIX album got taken away. And, so you became a part of the vocabulary at Dundalk Middle for half a year,
Cool. We did our job.
Yeah. With all your other gold records and everything, you can also add this to your claims to fame, huh?
Yeah.
That's great. So it looks like too, you've got a lot going on this year. I was looking on your tour dates, and you're doing the Rocklahoma Festival. You've done that before, haven't you? What's that like?
It's changed over the years. Yeah, we did it. The first time I did it with Rhino Bucket, 2007, I think. And then 2008, KIX did it. And that was our first, like back when we first got back together in 2000, at the end of 2003, we were just playing local shows. We do it a couple times a year. We do a little batch of shows. And that 2008 Rocklahoma was the first out of town date that we did.
Yeah. Yeah.
We'd just gotten our a new booking agent, and that's the first thing he booked us on. And I remember Steve was all nervous about it because, he thought they're never going to remember who we are. Like he just didn't think, outside of the Baltimore area, he thought nobody would know. But we got there, and it was crazy. It was, and this was back when Rocklahoma was primarily just the 80s bands.
Yeah.
I think they did they would do the 80s version of the festival, and then they had a country version too at some other point in the year. But I think soon after that, they were having some trouble with attendance or something, so they changed it around and made it sort of incorporated other stuff in there too, other types of music. So we did it. We went back a second time and did it, and I'm trying to remember who was on the main stage, some band that I don't really listen to. But we were on the side stage that time. The first time we were on the main stage, but so this will be our third time back as KIX.
Okay. Well, hey, that's nothing wrong with that. That's great. That's good news. That's good news. Representing at Rocklahoma.
As long as the weather holds out.
Oh yeah, I could imagine. I mean,
it's a scary part of the country when the weather goes sour.
Oh God, I know that's right. What is that, Tornado Alley or something they call that? Oh God, I couldn't even imagine.
Yeah, the first one we did, right? I think it was Trickster was playing, and I think it was supposed to be there was somebody else who was supposed to go on after them, and then us. And this storm came in, and they had to shut down. The main stage was a concrete foundation, so it was like this big garage door. They just lowered it and shut everything down. We had to go in these little trailers and hide.
Yeah.
Like you're safe in a trailer. But I remember the rain, I mean, it was going sideways outside the window, and I mean the wind and tents were flying, and when the storm finally blew through, both side stages had collapsed. So I mean it tore everything up. So then I forget who went on right before us. Maybe it was Lynch Mob or something. And then we went on, and it had stopped raining, but it's right when we started walking to the stage, you starts feeling the sprinkles coming. And as soon as we hit the stage, it just was a torrential downpour. And it was dark, so you couldn't really see the crowd the whole way. But every once in a while, this follow spot would pan across, and I mean, it was as far as you could see. There was people, and they stayed there in the rain. So it was cool. And another cool thing was Steve had the umbrella for cold shower, so he just grabbed that, was out there with it. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I love the dynamite microphone. I've always loved that. The microphone with the fuse on the end of it. I always thought that was the greatest. That's a nice touch. I really like that. I've always enjoyed that. How about and it looks like you're going to be back at M3 this year, huh?
Yeah, we've been doing that since they started.
I know. You guys are always like the headliner of that, I think, aren't you? Or most of the time.
Yeah, we started out as, because I think they used to do it just 2 days in the beginning. So we were just mixed in on like the Saturday, and then they added the Friday, and they made us the headliners on that night.
Right.
This year we're doing Sunday only because we're coming off the cruise, the Monsters of Rock cruise.
Yeah.
So we wouldn't have been able to do Friday.
Right. Yeah. So you'll be there that Sunday night. I saw that. And that's the first weekend in May usually. Is it going to be, I guess, May 7th? I think it is.
I'd have to look at it.
I'm asking you questions. Yeah. It's the first. It would be the 7th. I think it is. Yeah. Well, great. And I'm sure, the bands that come in, a lot of these guys from touring and, just performing over the years. I guess it's a real nice opportunity to have a reunion with a lot of these guys, huh?
Yeah, I mean, we do a lot of those bands. We play, well, a lot of the festivals. They're sort of 80s themed, so it's we see the same people over and over. So it's like, hey, how you doing? But I know when we first started doing this, and I ran into people from the 80s that I hadn't seen since then, and it's cool. It's a cool way to reconnect.
Yeah, that's got to be a lot of fun. I've had David Simmons from DC Star on the show a few times, and he told me last year they did quite a bit of playing with Zebra in the 80s, and he said last year he really got a chance to reconnect with Randy Jackson. They were talking for spent a lot of time together during that show, and that's really got to be neat, just the chance to do it and then get out there and play again. And I'm sure there's probably a lot of reminiscing going on too. Do you think, I just look back at, because I don't play as much now and it's, locally, but, kind of comparing, I guess what you can kind of say is you can never go home again. A lot of people, kind of agreed, that I've had on the show, the 80s around here, or, just in terms of music and everything, were really a magical time. You would go out to the clubs, you would hand out your flyers, you give out cassette tapes to people, you'd talk it up to try to get them to your show and everything. You get out and meet people, and it was a completely different atmosphere. I had stopped playing for a while and started again in the 2000s. I booked a show, went out and started giving out flyers, in a new band I was in, and people were looking at me like I had 3 heads. Have you noticed differences in that, I guess, over the years?
Yeah, I mean, it was the same with the Sunset Strip scene too. But well, now with social media, you don't need flyers. You just post
right.
Facebook.
Right. That's very true. That's another part of it right there.
Yeah.
When I was out doing this, that was kind of the dawn of, I think it was around 2005. That was like kind of the dawn of MySpace, and Facebook was brand new, and people were kind of doing it on there and not doing it I guess you would call it manually or in person.
Yeah.
But that was always a big thing. I mean, you'd been to CBGB's, I'm sure. And I think that place was probably, I guess the walls were probably about that thick with flyers on top of each other.
Right. And
from
stickers and what everything.
Mhm.
Who knows what else?
I know. I mean, Lord knows. I mean, Lord knows how many layers you would have to go through to get down to the bare walls in that place. Um, did you ever play up there?
Not at CBGB's. I've been in there, but
Yeah.
no, we there was a bunch of other clubs we did play up there in New York.
Mm-hmm.
We did the Cat Club on 11th Street. We did well, now it's called Webster Hall. It
Mm-hmm.
used to be called the Ritz. And then at some point the Ritz moved to where Studio 54 used to be, and we played that version of it. And there was another club down, God, I can't remember. Was it the Marquee or something on the east side of down there in lower Manhattan, but I can't remember exactly what that club was called.
Yeah, it was something, and I think another thing that kind of made it a magical time, in the 80s, early 90s, was the fact that whenever a band from the Baltimore DC scene got the opportunity to go up there and really showcase, it was a big deal, and it was almost like the gig before you would go up there to do it. Everybody else would kind of rally around you. It was almost like a bon voyage party. And then people would follow you up. There was usually a car caravan or something going up there, and it was almost like a Friars Club atmosphere. The people, everybody wanted to be successful themselves, but people were also rooting on their friends and everything too.
Yeah. Well, man, during the 80s, we played up and down, like from Boston all the way down to Florida and North Carolina. I mean, we were nonstop. The only time we ever took any break was to record another record. But I mean, that's what built our following, and it's just this solid fan base. So, and which is the reason we're still doing it, and they still show up. It's crazy.
Yeah. It really it is. And I was reading in your bio how you were talking about it was you were a couple of tours in 88, and that was probably what, about 3 albums or 4 albums in. You got your first tour bus. And a lot of people have the impression that when you're signed and you have albums out and you're on the radio and you're playing in these big arenas and everything,
you're a millionaire. Yeah,
exactly. I mean, I've been on network TV a couple of times, and a couple of movies, and then but people come up to me and they're like, how much are you worth now? And I'm like, I still have a job, dude. I mean, they have this thing, they have this impression that you have the one album out, or you're on TV a couple of times, then boom,
yeah, especially if you have a hit song or something. Because I've met some people from like the early 80s that I remember their song was like this huge hit, and they're scrounging around working at Starbucks, and it's like just that's one song's not going to do it. But as far as like, for us it was like the tour bus thing didn't come in until later. I remember Rat was our first real in 89 was our first full tour. Before that, it was pretty much like 1 or 2 or 3 shows here and there with different bands, and it was usually local. They'd throw us on the thing just to help boost the ticket sale. But I remember our very first tour bus was right before the Rat tour. It was in it 1988. It was around December or so. We had to do a run. We were playing. We're doing a tour with that band Jet Boy.
I remember Jet Boy. Sure, yeah.
Yeah, and they came back here and they did they opened for us for a whole string of shows that went all the way up the East Coast through New York, and I forget where else we played, but the last show we played Lemoore in Brooklyn, and then we had to go to Canada. So there was all these crazy long drives, like right at that point.
Yeah.
So we had to get a tour bus just to be able to do it, because there's no way we could have driven ourselves. Because
right.
especially because I was the one that did most of the driving.
Yeah, me too. I get it. Yeah.
Yeah. So so we got a tour bus at that point, and yeah, it's fun, but it's expensive too. And the funny thing was, when Jet Boy came out, they were opening for us, and they were the opener, so I can't imagine them. They weren't making hardly anything. Maybe, I mean, it could have been as bad as 200 a show or something.
Yeah.
And they had a tour bus. And I remember we'd pull up to a club in our van, and there's this huge tour bus out front. And the funny thing was, all the fans thought it was our bus. And they had this bus to try to impress people, and everyone thought it was ours anyway. And I don't know how they afforded that. I guess their record company was paying for it and racking up the bill,
Right. I've heard a lot of people say too, when it comes to things like that, you guys, all of your albums, I think, are well done. All the KIX albums, the Rhino Bucket material, it's all well done. It's a product that, if it were my record label, I'd definitely stand behind it. I would definitely have no problem at all. Being happy that this was my company's product, and, be proud to have you guys on the label and everything. But I hear a lot with, you guys are a great band. And I know a lot of people in acting, their hit TV shows, they're always like, they've always got like one step. They've always got like one foot on the side of a cliff, on the other foot on a banana peel the whole time, and it's just always like, there's nothing guaranteed in this business, especially in entertainment. People, I've worked with people that were on The Office, and they were always one step away from cancellation every season, as huge as that show was. And there's just so many people out there that are just in positions of power that aren't creative people, that don't seem to get it.
They're business people.
Right. Yeah. And it just seems like they may do things. There could be financial justifications, who knows? But it just seems like, when something is good, when a band is good, when they're doing these things, get behind them, get them out there a little bit more. But it seems like what you were talking about here, I just also read Gina Shock's book, from the Go-Go's. They spent a good, they had a lot of hit songs and things, and they spent a good part of their, the years they were together in the beginning in a van, just like you guys, did. It's just, just a strange world, in entertainment, this it's always something too.
Right. And when we signed our contract way back in 81, it was like we signed to do a record with the option to do 7 more, I think it was, something like that. But it was weird. Like 1981, they weren't giving out advances, so we got no advance. They just stuck us in the studio, and we learned the hard way because we had no idea what was going on. And we're in the studio and ordering food, because they have all those menus up at the front of the front desk there, and you can go rifle through the drawer and get find a menu and order, and they deliver it. So we were just eating cheesecake and all kinds of junk. And I remember at some point we realized all that stuff we're doing, it's getting charged back to us.
Yes. Yes.
including, it's weird because they put us in, we did the first record and Midnight Dynamite at Atlantic Studios up in New York City. And you think if it's their studio, they're still charging us for it. So it's like they're making like it's just a weird setup.
Yeah.
But where was I going with this? Now I can't remember what my point was going to be.
The surprise expenses, you mean, like
well, you realize, here it was, because what you said, we had the option for 7 more, so we only sold maybe 60,000 on the first record, which sounds great now in these days, but back then it wasn't a whole lot. and it may have been enough to cover the expenses of the record.
Sure, sure.
So you know, when they just threw it out there, they didn't do anything, and the next thing we know, they're telling us we have to go do another record, and but they picked up the option, and each time it was like that, like you're saying, you're waiting for the other shoe to drop, and they kept picking it up. So either they had a feeling that there was something to us, or we were the tax write-off. I'm not sure which one it was.
Yeah, yeah. Huh. That's it. Another thing, it just seems too. That's a thought that's crossed my mind is, I've seen where you've played with a lot of different types of bands, from the, heavier to the more, I guess, the more poppier metal bands. You seem to be pretty versatile, and you could be matched up with a lot of different people, and the show would make sense. You know what I mean? There are a lot of bands out there that are kind of like that are versatile. Cheap Trick is one of them. You could see them with somebody who's really heavy, but you could also, they were just out with Rod Stewart, and the show makes sense.
I saw that tour. It was great.
Yeah. Yeah, that was one that got delayed by COVID. But yeah, and you guys are like that too, I think. I've heard of you with heavier bands. I guess you kind of know what I mean, right? You play with bands that are all across the metal or hard rock spectrum.
Yeah, well, most of the time it's with in a festival kind of setting, so that kind of works out better because the people are there anyway. But yeah, there's only been a couple times when we were sent out with some band and it did not work.
Right.
Like their crowd just didn't want to hear it.
Yeah. And yeah, it was kind of the opposite of, but you can, like I said, you fit well with a lot of different bands out there, I think. There was one thing I saw, there's this thing called like Death Fest or something that's in Baltimore City at Baltimore Soundstage. And they really bring in like the heavy, like that Swedish death metal Cookie Monster vocal stuff.
Oh,
And the headliner was like Blue Oyster Cult. Like, what the hell?
yeah,
It's like you had, the guys, and the guys are like 75 now, and they're playing with those.
Yeah, it's weird when they do that. They bring somebody from that's not even like in the same decade.
Right. Well, I mean, a lot of metalheads like Blue Oyster Cult, but I wouldn't have paired them with. You can't even read these bands' names either, if you've noticed. They have their band logo up, and you're like, what the?
It looks like Tree Roots or something.
Yes, exactly. I'm looking at this, and it's like that whole like monster movie blood candle wax kind of shaped lettering, and it's usually it's not a word like Blue Oyster Cult or something like that. It's like some kind of like word that means like an obscure demon or something, that nobody has ever that nobody really knows. So yeah, it looks like with Rhino Bucket, did I see that you guys were overseas recently?
Yeah, January we were over there for that month.
How was that?
Oh, it was great. It's weird. People ask me that, and I say, well, it was really great. It was really grueling, but overall, it turned out to be a success. I mean, the thing with Europe, see, Rhino Bucket's not on the same level as KIX, obviously. So to tour the US, like we used to try to do it back when I first joined them back in the early 2000s, and we could pull it off to a certain extent, but it's just gotten worse to where most clubs aren't open. Music venues aren't open on the weekend with bands. So if you're trying to tour, there's always these gaps, like where you have time off, and Rhino Bucket we can't make enough to afford to do fly dates. So we would have to drive, which would mean we'd have all these downtime days in between. And it just, I remember the last time we tried to book one, we had some decent bookings, but we added it all up at the end, and it was like we're negative $750 or
Mm,
something.
jeez.
That just doesn't make sense.
Right.
So, then we go to Europe, and we can play 7 nights a week and pack the place every single night. We'll go to another city or a town or a city
Mhm.
or whatever you call them over there, and pack the place, especially Germany.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
they come. Yeah, it's a whole different thing over there. It's
Mhm.
it's so cool. So we had, like, right off the bat, we had several sold out shows, and then every other show that wasn't sold out, might as well have been, because the place was packed. So that part was good. The grueling part is with Rhino Bucket, because we are low budget. we we go through a touring company over there that provides a driver and a Sprinter van, and we rent the gear from the promoter
Oh
or
sure.
the
Yeah.
booking guy. He's got a garage full of gear. So they load up that van and they come to the airport and pick us up, and we head off. And so we don't have roadies. So it's just us.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
load the van, we set up the stage, we play, we tear it all back down, load it back in the van, go to the hotel, sleep, wake up, drive to the next place.
Mhm.
And it's like that night after night after night after night. So the month of January, we had a total of 3 days off that entire tour. And it was like one day near like a weekend, and then 2 days a week from the end. And that was it. The rest of the time we were playing every single night. But
Mhm.
in a way, it's good, because I was so, because it's weird when you get to, like, that's how it was in the old days for KIX. Like, we used to play like nonstop, when we just tour and tour and tour. And my playing got so good, I didn't even have to think about it. And that's kind of how it was on this Rhino Bucket tour. By the end, I was so warmed up. And I'm not used to feeling that. I start questioning myself at points, like, am I losing it?
Mhm.
And then I go on one of these Rhino Bucket tours, and it's like, no, I'm not losing it.
No,
It's
no,
still
not at
there.
all. Oh no, no. I mean, I've seen you a number of times recently. No, you guys aren't losing a thing. It's sounding great. Believe me. I wouldn't. Believe me, you're still have it after all these years. I was looking at a couple of other things here. You know, you you know, you had some ups and downs. KIX, as a band had some ups and downs, as all bands do. Um, you'd left for a while, you'd come back, I think you had kind of started up again around '03 and '04, doing
Mhm.
reunions, getting out there and doing shows and everything. Um, After, having spent a number of years, not doing it, what was it like, just to get together with everybody again and start it up?
Oh, it was cool. Yeah, 93, I left. I went out to California, and I kept playing in different bands out there. I
Mhm.
was always playing with somebody, but around, yeah, somewhere around the fall of 2003, Steve calls me up, and he was doing his Funny Money thing, and Ronnie had his Blues Vultures band, and they would do shows together around the area. And Steve said, at the end of the night, because he had Jimmy on drums, Ronnie would jump up there and they do KIX songs, like kind of like the encore. And he said the club owners really liked it, and they always throw him a bonus for doing that. And he goes, "What would you think about flying back here and like doing the surprise thing and just pop up there?" And I said, "Yeah, that sounds like fun."
Mhm.
So he connected me with the promoter, and so I was going to try to get my expenses covered. And for some reason, they were playing some small little place, and the guy just didn't have enough left over for expenses, so it didn't work out. But that got Steve and I talking, and it was like the next time we spoke, I was like, why don't we do this for real? Like, see if what would
Mhm.
happen. So that's when we booked the show. It's like the holidays. 2003. It's right at the end of the year, and so we booked a few shows, and of course, we get there and it's just a line around the block, and it's packed, and after those first few shows, it's like, well, we got to do this again. We can't just say, oh, that was fun. So
Yeah.
I mean, and that's the whole reason we did it to begin with. It was, we wanted to have some fun, like no pressure, just have some fun and make some money, and it worked out.
Yeah, I'm glad it became fun again for you. Everybody goes through different phases in their performing careers, especially with everything that goes into being a performer. I guess sometimes a break like that, I guess, is really what the doctor ordered. And it looks like you got a chance to really work out any differences you might have had, and I'm glad you got back together.
Yeah, I mean, when I left, it was at that point in our career, we just had that hit with Don't Close Your Eyes, and then we do Hotwire, thinking this is the one that's gonna take us, to the top. And Hotwire comes out, and it's just like, and the whole grunge thing comes in, and I saw the ship was going down, and after all those years of climbing up that hill, trying to get up there, and then to realize it's not going any farther, it's going down. It was so disillusioning that I was like, I had myself personally, I just had to take a break. But there's a lot of pressure when you get to that point too. After having a hit song, then you got to, make sure the next record's even better. And so I mean, there's a lot of pressure on Donnie too, because he was the primary songwriter, and so there was all this tension in the band at that point, and I just couldn't deal with it anymore. So that's why I left. So when we did get back together, it was like a breath of fresh air. It was like I hadn't seen Steve since I left.
Wow.
It was like 10 years. Had been 10 years. And I was wondering what he's going to look like. I was like, I haven't seen these guys. And so it was really cool to get back together with them.
Well, that's great. And a lot of people are glad that you did. I mean, I could see by the amount of people that come to the shows and are just loving it. The Dundalk Heritage Fair is one. You guys do that one usually every couple of years. They hit you there. I really enjoyed the Frederick show. Go ahead.
I was going to say about the Heritage Fair. The first time we did that, they were expecting maybe 5,000 people or something, and I think there was like 20,000 people. It was like something crazy amount of people showed up to that, and they weren't even ready for it.
Oh yeah. Well, the thing is that you're our guys around here. You're going to draw people. People want to see you. You are a beloved part of our music scene here. For I would say you're probably one of the. I guess if there was a Baltimore, DC area Mount Rushmore, I guess I would say KIX. I would say probably DC Star, others too. I can let my listeners fight over that. But I would definitely say that, I mean, you guys, everybody loves you guys. I mean, you see KIX t-shirts all over the place. You've been around, I guess, totally for 40 years. And, it's not like, whenever you guys do a show, it's like Puppet Show and Spinal Tap, where you have like 3 people sitting in the crowd or anything. You're still packing them in. And I'm happy for that. It's something that, like I said, I've always enjoyed. And we really, I think a lot of people out there are thankful to you guys because, there are probably tons of people, just like you saw in that Hammerjacks documentary. You could probably, interview a lot of people that come to your shows, and they have, memories of, couples, memories of coming out to see you, and, times that they've really enjoyed, being at the shows, people, I'm sure there are a lot of people out there that have chosen, to, hey, happy birthday, here's some KIX tickets. Hey, it's our anniversary, let's go see KIX. And I think, and you've been, a lot of times too, people are a fan of what you're doing. You kind of become a part of their life almost, whether they really know you personally or not. And I think you guys have really achieved that in, and again too, staying and, performing a lot in, where your roots are here in, the Maryland, DC area,
Yeah, well, yeah, it's like yeah, and plus social media kind of helps that out too at the same time, because there's the KIX fan page and even our personal pages, and we can interact with these people, and might not necessarily be somebody that I know, but now I kind of know them from talking to them on Facebook.
Right.
So they feel more, it's more personal for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And so what I'd like to do is give you an opportunity right now. This is what I call the shameless plug portion of the evening, where you can shamelessly plug anything you'd like to shamelessly plug, and be as shameless as you want, with no shamelessness spared. So have at it, Mr. Brian.
What can I plug? I mean, as far as KIX goes, we do have a bunch of shows coming up, but you have to look at the KIX tour dates to see exactly. I know this week we're up in up above Lancaster,
Lillet's, PA. Yeah, I think I saw that. Yeah.
And then on Saturday we're down in is it Fairfax or one of those down by DC, the State Theater. The week after we're in Charlotte, North Carolina. Where are we the week after that? I think we're back up in the area, Brunswick.
Yes, at a fire hall, or is it?
Yeah, Brunswick Fire Hall. Yeah, I can't remember all the dates, but I can remember the next few. But we're doing the Monster of Rock cruise at the end of April, and then the M3, of course, and then as far as Rhino Bucket, we just did the European tour, and we're planning on doing another record at some point.
Good.
Not sure exactly when that's going to happen, but that's our plan. And I do have this friend of mine, Jim Cara. He builds custom guitars. He does like all Gene Simmons guitars, Ace Frehley.
Is that right?
Nita Ford. What's his name from? I can't remember the guy's name. That's John Five. Who? John Five. Oh, John Five. I wasn't thinking of him. The guy. Yeah. But anyway, he's doing a replica of my Telly that he's selling. It's like a relic version, so it looks just like the one that I play on stage. So if anyone's interested in that, you can go to Cara Guitars and find a link for my guitar on there.
Oh, wonderful. Well, I appreciate you being willing to come and talk to us tonight on Fowl Players Radio. And, it was great to get a chance to meet you and speak with you, and have you share stories and, tell us, all about KIX and Rhino Bucket and the things that you've done over the years. Folks, so we've had Brian Forsythe with us tonight of KIX. And your links to the KIX band and your dates and everything, I'll be sure to put, and Rhino Bucket as well. I'll be sure to put in the show notes, so you can look at the websites, and as well as you said Cara Guitars. We can put those in there as well, so people can look at those. And again, thank you very much for being with us. And folks, thank you all for listening. We've had Brian Forsythe of KIX and Rhino Bucket with us tonight, and we will see you next time. Take care.
See ya.
Hi, this is Bud Becker, and you're listening to Fowl Players Radio.
Hello, my name is Gunhild Carling, and you are listening to Fowl Players Radio, and I am interviewed here, so tune in.
This is Just Bill.
This is Rat Bastardson.
And this is Joe Poodle from Red Die Number 9, and you are listening to Fowl Players Radio.
Hey, everybody. Thank you for sticking around and listening to the interview with Brian Damage Forsythe from KIX and Rhino Bucket. I really enjoyed having him on. I think it was a great conversation, and I think you'll enjoy it too. I hope you did enjoy it, actually. Make sure you, again, check us out on all of these platforms where you can find our podcast. You can also find it on our main website, foulplayersradio.com, and on YouTube at Fowl Players Radio. Please, tell your friends, hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, and make sure you tell everybody and spread the word. Until next time, this is Michael Spedden. Thank you for tuning in to Fowl Players Radio.